Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the New World Order podcast, our special episode, Death and Taxes. Some asshole said once that only two things in life are certain. One is death and the other is taxes. I am sitting here with a man today who we're going to call Harry, who claims that he has beaten at least one of those things. He says that he has beat the IRS, which is obviously a huge violation of what the New World Order is trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well.
So I do want to let you know that we have made a few telephone calls to our underlings, and we have given them what information you've given us, and you'll be hearing from us shortly. We're not going to let this pass.
Bring him on!
So, this gentleman says that he has beat the IRS. We've all heard stories about how income tax is not legal, but anybody who goes and tries to do this, especially high-profile cases, I think Wesley Snipes was the one who...
Wesley Snipes, Irvin Schiff.
Yeah.
Joe Bannister, Sherry Jackson.
So to get to the main point, the reason why I wanted to do this is because you impressed me with a check. And I don't think you scribbled out your name. That's perfect. So we have a refund check here from the IRS when you did your zero return, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And to me, that was very interesting because I've never met anybody before who claims the things that you claim, but actually took the fight to court and won. So that's interesting. So let's get into this a little bit. We want to introduce you to everybody, so we want to give your character out there a little bit. So first of all, you kind of always struck me when I met you. You're the type of person that we all know must be out there, the type of person that we all know exists, but we never meet you in person. You're kind of like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or Jesus Christ. We all think it must be out there, but it never presents itself. You know what I mean? So let's give a rough outline of you. So you are a survivalist. You consider yourself a survivalist. Yes. Okay. And how many guns do you own?
42.
42 guns. Okay. How many old cars do you have ready to go on your property? You have 4.
All four-wheel drive. None of those fancy two-wheel drive $60,000 BMW. I could run in the woods.
Okay, so all of your cars, they're off-road, they're ready to go. Okay. How much non-perishable survival food do you have stored away?
240 cans of freeze-dried dehydrated food, 13 cases of ready-to-eat meals, and 6 cases that had 6 months' food for a family of 4 for 3 years. So I got, if you took it in money terms, we're talking $8,000 worth of survival food.
How long do you think the amount of food that you have would last?
I would have to be 600 years old to eat it all. I have to give some of it away.
So you obviously are preparing for something.
Yeah.
Or maybe not the eventuality of the end of the world, but the possibility, at least.
The possibility of the end of the age, which will be the end of government finally trying to enslave all the people, as you know it because you're part of the team.
I think that people, if we left them to their own devices, they have nothing better to do anyway than to work for me.
So, master and slave.
I don't think that's the nicest way to look at it, my friend. I would say, look at the New World Order as a very stern uncle.
Or a savior.
Or a savior. I like that better. We're here to make sure that your lives are full with work and money and taxes. And we want everybody to fill up every hour of their day producing goods so that it makes all of our lives better, especially mine.
Right, because you got the IA of turning them into robots, and they're taught. This is as far as you go.
Do you mean AI? AI, artificial intelligence? Okay.
Okay, what did your George Carlin says? Who are the owners of this earth? You're not the owners. You're not part of the club.
I disagree. I actually am the owner.
We own nothing.
No, you don't.
We don't own nothing. I don't own my house. I don't own my cars. If I don't pay the real estate tax, the house gets taken away.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I lost one house.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that.
If I don't put a license plate on the car and I drive it on the road, I'm going to end up with fines and tickets and possibly end up in jail.
Yep, that's right.
If in some states, if you don't get a permit for your firearm, you're not allowed to have it. So what do you own?
I don't think you own anything. What do you own?
My soul, my heart, my brain. That's it.
Well, we're working on that too. New technologies are underway. We will eventually have your heart and your brain. We're definitely working on the soul, but
the soul,
that one's a little more difficult. Yeah.
But the brain you're going to have hard to get through, because I'm a stubborn Dutchman.
So you consider yourself a little thick-headed? Is that what you're saying?
Thick-headed? Yeah, I'm thick-headed.
Who would have thought that somebody who has 27 cans of survival food, 40-something guns, and 4 cars would be thick-headed?
People think what you have, but I know I survived. Yeah, I may survive, but eventually they'll get me. They'll get me because I won't going to last so long. But I'm out there.
So I wanted to show something real quick. When I first met you, one of the first things that we did together was we watched a movie called Harry's War,
yes.
Which I don't know. This kind of strikes me like this is kind of your ideal movie. This is about a gentleman who goes to see his. I think he works for the post office, right?
Yes.
Okay. And he goes to see his aunt who has $190,000 in back taxes or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And she says that she doesn't owe it. So armed IRS agents end up on the property. There's a huge battle, and it's done pretty comedically. Like Harry's.
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
Except in certain sections, there are some serious issues there.
Yeah. And it's obviously trying to drive a point home. And when I watched it, it kind of read like all those movies that the right wing is putting out right now, like Ben Shapiro basically has his own production office. What's that?
Red Dawn.
Well, no, I mean like the obvious like right wing movies that are being made now.
The Matrix?
Low budget. Matrix wasn't right wing. No.
No, that was your movie.
I like The Matrix. There's a coded message in there from the New World Order to all of you, but I'm not going to get into that. You have to figure it out for yourselves.
Every movie should have a message.
Well, I think that...
Subliminally, just like watching TV, they send in messages through your brain and trying to form your brain, and you start to believe it.
There's a great quote from... I think it's from V for Vendetta. Artists use lies to tell the truth. So I think that that's really the proper function of art, is to describe truth to somebody on an emotional basis so it really hits home for the person. You know what I mean? And I think that The Matrix and things like that. So I mean, getting back to Harry's War, there was obviously a point that it was getting across, and the woman, his aunt, who owes all the taxes that he goes to visit, it's a bar that she owns, is that right, or is it like a thrift store?
She inherited a surplus business from her husband, was a World War II veteran, and she had a half track, she had landmines, she had all kinds of surplus from World War II, and she sold them as scrap.
Oh, so she had like a scrap business.
Yes,
that's what it was.
Like a scrap business.
It's been a while since I watched it. Yeah.
Yes.
But what I found really interesting about this movie is this aunt. Do we remember her name?
No.
No? Okay. So she she has all these characters
Yes.
around her table that she helps out, and she feeds them. And
every Sunday they had a dinner by her house.
And the conversation always seems to come back to the government
Right.
and the IRS and everything. And I mean, that's kind of you. Like you attract these odd characters, and that seems to kind of be like the glue that holds all of you guys together. You know?
There was one guy at the table that was an IRS agent with a tape recorder taping her.
We're not talking about you. We're talking about in the movie.
The movie.
Yeah, okay.
But there was a guy from the IRS, and they were found out.
Right. So, and that's how they got found out, and that's how the battle started.
That's how the battle started.
Yeah, and that's why she had all the landmines in the old tank and everything. And really great scene where Harry is...
She got it from her husband.
Yeah.
And that was when it was all legal to buy at one time in the 40s.
Okay. Right. And that's how Harry... Really funny scene where Harry's in a tank. You don't see it coming.
He's in a half-track, a Bradley half-track. And he went into the TV studio, crashed through the wall, and declared war on the IRS.
That's right. Because what were they filming in the studio again?
They were doing a radio broadcast, and they were talking about taxes like we're talking about it right now.
That's right. And because there was a new CIA director or something like that.
No, the IRS director.
IRS.
They didn't want to talk about her having a heart attack at U.S. tax court and dying.
Right.
And after they buried her, he went back to the property, and there was a sign, IRS property.
Right.
They took the property. She wasn't even cold in the grave, and they took the property.
Right. Right.
That's how heartless they are.
Right. Well, and that happens in real life.
Oh, yeah. I know a few cases like that.
Right.
They tried to destroy me, but they underestimated me.
Apparently so. We're not going to make that mistake twice.
No. Because I did that, 2001? And it is 2023, and they haven't bothered me since. They don't put no criminal charges against me. I got a letter from the Department of Justice. They don't even want to touch my case. I only did this from 1980 to 2012. So I got 30 years.
That's a hell of a long time. That's how long it took you to do.
That's how long it
the
took
research.
Compile the information, create my tax statement, send it out there. 264 pages.
Yeah. So do you think that the IRS no longer bothers you because you won the legal battle, that you're legally correct? Or do you think that there's just some clerk somewhere who says, there's no fucking way I'm reading all of this, we're just going to leave this guy alone?
Well, the only reason why I beat them is because they got tired of me. I stopped them one at a time, and the clerks got sick and tired of reading my statements.
Right.
I don't do a 1040 no more.
Right.
I only do a tax statement, which is legal under the Privacy Act of 1974.
Okay.
It says you must fill out a tax return or a tax statement.
Right.
Because I took my boss to court, and I beat him all the way to the Supreme Court, which was the New York City Transit Authority.
So you're talking about the New York State Supreme Court.
New York City subway system.
No. But I mean, when you say the Supreme Court, you don't mean the Supreme Court of America. You mean the New York Supreme Court.
No,
right?
we talk about the Supreme Court in Washington. I went all the way up to there.
I have no idea how this nonsense works, so you're going to have to...
Well, it's Washington, D.C. court.
Okay. All right, but you're not talking about the Supreme Court,
well, I went
where they have 9 justices.
I went through that. I went that with the appellate court, the New York State Supreme Court, and then I made a federal, and I took it all the way to Washington.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So you had to do all of that just to get your employer to stop taking taxes out of your paycheck.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Right. So I don't want to get too much into the taxes yet. As far as your tax statement, we did go and scan this thing.
Yes.
Because you only had a paper copy. You are the paper man. You love having papers. There are stacks of papers all over the compound that you've printed out. You don't trust having things as digital media.
No, you could wipe out a digital thing, but you can't wipe out paper.
And you told me that you believe the government actually hacked and destroyed your computer at one time.
Yes, they did 2 years ago. They wiped out my computer, my hard drive, my operating system, everything. Luckily, I got 3 more computers that I keep stored.
And you don't have those connected to the internet, so you have your digital files.
To the internet.
Hey, listen, man, that's smart. If you think that people are after you, I mean, and you're not a tech whiz, which neither of us are, obviously, I think it's a good idea to have important documents stored on something that's not connected to the internet. That makes sense.
Have you had Treasury agents knock on your door telling you the judge wants to see you?
That has never happened to me, no.
It happened.
But I have sent them to go knock on other people's doors.
Well, you do have CPAs, bookkeepers, and lawyers on your side.
We do indeed.
Yes, you do. And you rely on them. But you yourself don't have the knowledge they have of that.
No, I don't have to. I'm a man of leisure.
Yes.
Of leisure. I read books and I paint and I don't have to think about all the cares of the world.
You don't think of the negative things like that.
Nah, I try not to. It's depressing. But honestly, I watch the news and it strikes me as a comedy. I'm watching a comedy unfold in real time, especially with the Tomahawk missiles shooting down the balloons from China or whatever the hell that was. I was laughing my ass off.
Well, what about the millions of dollars of bombs we bombed in Vietnam?
Sounds very profitable.
On Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Sounds like we made a lot of money.
We got rid of all weapons and the system rebuilt more, and therefore the manufacturers got more money and kept the debt up.
Yeah, of course. Well, money is... A lot of people think that money is value. It's not. Money represents debt. Our currency, the way we establish the system, it represents debt. Every dollar that you have in your pocket is owed to somebody else. Yes. And eventually, it all comes back to the Federal Reserve because they print the money on debt. In order for any money to be printed at all, whether it's paper money or digital money like in the computer, the fractal reserve system states that you have to have in your reserve 10% capital of the loan that you are going to give somebody else. And then the rest of that money is created by bookkeeping entry. So if you want to take out a $100,000 loan from a bank, the Federal Reserve Act states that you as a bank only have to have $10,000 in reserve. You can then loan $100,000 to whoever wants it, and the other $90,000 is created through bookkeeping entry, which means every single dollar in existence, because that original $10,000 was created the same way, every single dollar in existence represents debt to somebody else. It doesn't represent value.
That's why we're off the gold standard, because the gold standard is fixed, and gold is a normal thing around the world.
There's only so much of it.
There's so much of it,
right?
And it holds its value. It may go up and down a few $100, $1,000, but it's not created out of thin air.
Right. And inflation is probably the best scam that we have ever come up with to make sure that people have to keep working harder and harder and harder all the time.
Yeah,
the longer you live just on your savings, the less value, the less buying power that money in your savings has.
That's absolutely true.
If you retire at 65 and you are, let's say you have a pension, $75,000 a year. Most people can live on that right now. Let's say you live for another 30 years. That $75,000 a year would be like maybe $30,000 today. You're going to wind up dying very, very poor, and eventually you're going to have to go get a job at Walmart saying, "Hello, how are you today?" to every single fucking person that comes in.
Or you be on government assistance and welfare.
Nah, we like that.
Oh, of course you do. You got control of them.
Then they have to do what we say, otherwise we cut their assistance.
Oh, yeah. That's the threat.
See, so you're on to the game. You're on to the game.
That's why my pension and my Social Security is totally tax-free.
Yeah.
Now you get into the exemption papers that you file for exemption.
Yeah, you gave me a whole stack of papers. Yeah. We're going to go through them one by one, I think, in the next segment.
You could just claim exemption, and you got to take my information and apply it and go after your boss and tell them it's illegal for you to tax me, and they may fight you, they may not.
Right.
And then again, you got to fight the IRS on top of that, because they're going to deny you, or they're going to make a substitute return. But if they don't have none of my money, I can't do a 1040. It's illegal.
So what you're talking about is basically, and we're going to get into this.
Procedure. It's procedure. Okay. That's all it is.
But what you're saying, basically the argument from yourself and everybody else who says that income tax is, or enforcing income tax is illegal because it's a voluntary system, which we're definitely going to get into.
Right.
What you're saying is if you just say off the bat, I'm exempt from paying this, you file the exemption form on your W-4 when you get a job, and then you file a zero return during tax time, and that's how to do it. That's perfectly legal. That's the first step. Yeah.
The second step, you got to back it up with a tax statement.
And we're gonna put that 264-page document up online somewhere. We're gonna make sure it's in the show notes, and we're gonna talk about this a little later too, whether or not he actually would recommend to anybody that you do this. Either case, it's sure to be an interesting read. If you have the time to read it, we're gonna make sure it's up online somewhere for everybody. Yeah. We're trying to figure out how to do that. We might just put it on Google Docs or something like that.
I don't suggest it for everybody.
We'll get to that.
Because you know what? You open up a can of worms and all kinds of people will come after you.
Right. Exactly. So a lot of preppers also, and we're talking about currency and how it has absolutely no value. Let me ask you another question. How much gold and silver do you have stored around the compound?
None.
Why do you have no gold and silver?
I don't believe in gold and silver.
But if currency loses its value, I mean, you're really thinking like the end of the world's going to come.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have gold and silver to trade?
25,000 rounds of ammo and 43 guns. I got trade items. I got food. Food is a trade item. That's what Kissinger said in 1986.
So you're thinking the actual means of survival will become valuable, not gold and silver. No, gold and silver is
system.
Yeah. Now that makes sense. And I do want to bring up one story that I remember, and I was trying to shoehorn it into the conversation, but I do want to bring it up. It's hilarious. We were hanging out once, watching TV, and right next to the fireplace, you have this big metal bin.
Yeah.
That you put all your fire pokers and everything like that in. And I'm sitting there. I'm a little drunk. I forget what we were watching. It doesn't matter. I'm on the phone with one of my cohorts, thinking about the future plans and everything. And all of a sudden, you lift up this metal trash can and you pull out six sticks of dynamite from under the trash can. It's right next to the fucking fireplace. And I'm sitting there like, Jesus Christ, who am I hanging out with? I feel like I'm hanging out with Hunter S. Thompson over here. I mean, there's a story. Johnny Depp was hanging out with Hunter S. Thompson. He had an ashtray on top of a giant wooden barrel in the basement where he was sleeping because he was hanging out with
that.
Yeah, so Johnny Depp is sitting there smoking cigarettes. And all of a sudden, Hunter Thompson comes out and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I need this barrel." And it's fucking full of gunpowder. And Johnny Depp's like, "What the fuck? I've been smoking next to that the whole time. We could have blown up the whole house."
120 pounds of gunpowder.
I don't even want to know where it is. I don't even.
No,
don't tell me.
It's out in the back.
Don't tell me.
That I put out back.
So what about the dynamite, man? You're sitting there telling me, "Oh, don't worry about it. They're road flares." I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe you for a second.
Would you believe if I got three bricks of C4 with dead cord?
I definitely believe that.
But it's not here.
Why would you see? I'm kind of thinking, why would he have road flares? You can't kill people with those.
No, but road flares are good for detonators, for setting fires. Remember, you played with my laser.
The laser. I love the laser. A lot of people saw that on YouTube. Laser, we had like 2,500 views on that. That was pretty cool.
Well, that laser, if I hit it on the flare, it would set it on fire.
We got to try that later. That sounds like fun.
I could do that 100 yards away.
We got to try that later. That sounds like a lot of fun. We definitely have to try that.
I don't play with fireworks like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's small stuff.
So you are obviously preparing for the end of the world.
The end of my world, if you want to call it.
The end of civilization.
Not civilization. The end of between government and people.
Okay. Now, are you somebody who thinks that the current system that we're in should end, or are you just preparing for the inevitable?
Thomas Jefferson said, we have a right to change this government by ballot or bullet every 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're about 200 years old. Is it time for a revolution?
Well, I talked to you about this before, and he said if you have a democracy and you want to keep it a democracy, and Benjamin Franklin also said this, I believe, you have to have a revolution every 200 years.
Yes.
And hey, let's go from 1776. What's 200 years later? Pretty much the 1960s. We did have a revolution. We had a revolution of the mind, and it failed miserably. Miserably. Because
the sex and drugs was better off than going into battle.
But I mean, even groups like the Black Panthers and a lot of the hippies, they started out with a very militant attitude when they first got started. Do you think that the whole acid scene that was introduced by Timothy Leary, do you think that that was kind of a psyop from the CIA to undermine the revolution that was happening in the 60s?
Any organization, sooner or later, the IRS gives a tax-exempt status. Like Black Lives Matter got, $10 million? And the president of that thing fought 4 mansions. Corruption.
I've heard something about this.
Yes.
I tend to watch...
It's called corruption.
I tend to watch media that goes... I watch right-wing media because I think it's hilarious. And then I watch left-wing media because I think it's even more hilarious. So, I mean, when I sit there and... when I look at politicians and political debates and things like that, it kind of strikes me as the WWE. Is it entertaining to watch? Absolutely. It's very entertaining. And some of the people do get hurt. But at the end of the day, it's all theater.
Right.
It's all theater. It's there to get your attention.
Did you ever watch the Contra hearings with that general during the Contra War?
No.
The CIA traded drugs for money.
Okay.
And they supplied the weapons down in Central America.
Okay.
That was about 1880.
This was during the this was during the Reagan administration, right?
Colonel North.
I was a tiny little baby.
Right. So you would even consider that.
Yeah.
But I watched the whole debate in Congress, and Colonel North didn't hold back anything. He just told it the way it was.
Okay.
So the CIA is just as evil as any other organization. They have their agenda.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody has an agenda.
Sure.
How much willpower you got to push it is up to you.
Well, and how much money you have backing you up. And it's kind of like the life cycle of anything. Being an individual, what's your number one instinct? It's to survive.
Yes.
Your second instinct is to replicate.
Yes.
Reproduce. And your third instinct is to grow. I mean, that's basically what all life wants to do. And I don't think that organizations, whether they're corporations or countries or government agencies, I don't think they're any different. They follow the same principal rules of all life. They want to survive. They want to make more of themselves. and they want to grow and expand.
They want a legacy.
Exactly.
And that's what some people get caught up with.
Yeah.
Now, I got a book. I'll show you. This is very interesting. This book goes back 4,000 years of history.
Don't hold the book in front of your mouth. You got to be able to talk into the mic.
This goes 4,000 years in history.
You can show it to the camera right there.
Right.
There you go.
This book will give you the total history of mankind from, let's go back to Christ's time, to the Roman Empire, to the Roman Catholic Church, to the birth of America, and it will show you systematically how it came about.
You showed this to me earlier today, and I immediately grabbed my Kindle and I bought it. And it looks like one of those books that's talking about how there's always a class. The civilization basically runs on a class of elites, those with the power, and the underclass that are there to serve the elites. And it's kind of been that way all throughout history. And this is talking about that structure, and it gets very New World Order,
the structure,
and how they use, the original control for civilization was religion, which is very interesting.
But you remember the pyramid on a dollar bill?
Do I remember the pyramid with the eye in it? You have seen our videos, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're familiar with that.
Go back to the White Brotherhood of Egypt,
okay,
which was before Christ's time,
sure,
during the Pharaoh's time, and it's like history repeating itself over and over again, that we're on the cycle like a bunch of hamsters.
Right, exactly. So let me ask you a question. You do think that civilization is failing. You don't see that as a bad thing because you kind of feel like the system has gotten so corrupt. I don't know, do we want to call it a cleansing fire that you're looking forward to?
Not so much a cleansing fire, but our freedom is worth something. And
because my point was going to be, if everybody in the country stopped paying income taxes, the country would collapse. You're aware of that.
Not true.
Why is that not true?
1913, this country ran on excise tax, and there was no income tax.
Okay.
And
it's a very different world than it was in 1913.
It's a different world. But it has got so corrupt that the basics of the tax was based on export taxes and import taxes on trade and businesses.
Okay.
All right? If I give you a W-4 form, I work for you, and I tell you to stop taking taxes on me, I get a 30% increase in pay automatically.
Okay.
I lower the workforce on your bookkeeping department because they don't have to file these papers no more.
That's true.
I get a 30% increase. I'm a happier worker because you don't have to give me a raise.
Okay.
So therefore, now I got an investment that I want to do better in your business, so I make you richer.
So you actually think, and are there other people that you're friends with that feel the same way you do, that abolishing the income tax altogether, or let's call it red pilling, enough people that nobody was paying income taxes, you think that the country could actually survive on that? Because I'm kind of sitting here thinking maybe we wouldn't have enough surplus cash to fire $500,000 Tomahawk missiles at balloons in the sky. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to do that.
Well, the point is, if you had no surplus and we had real money, like when we were on the gold standard, the money would be worth something better than what it is now.
No, that's true.
Thin air. Now, they said, a congressman said in 1993, that said that the IRS is 90% bluff.
Uh-huh.
It's like going to a poker game and you already got the game rigged.
I have the document that you gave me on that. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
That was said, and I got 5 other IRS commissioners that said it's voluntary. And the only real income tax you have to pay is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. That's under the BATF, and that's the real enforceable tax.
Okay.
Not the A tax. The A tax is Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, Tsunami, Marshall Islands, St. Vincent Island, Puerto Rico, Philippines, our territories.
Okay.
The United States is not a territory of Washington, D.C. It was changed in 1871. They rewrote the Constitution in 1899. They made it a commercial constitution.
Mm-hmm.
We have two constitutions. The original ones we have is gone.
Well, we're gonna talk about that too. And you turned me on to some documents which I found really interesting, because I was aware of the conspiracy theory that human beings in America, American citizens, are not considered by the country legally to be free citizens. They are considered to be corporations. Each one is a corporation, and then you turned me on to, no, actually, you're considered a piece of cargo.
Yes.
That can have liens placed against it.
That was in 1700 with the birth certificate. Birth, from the Marathon terms, is insurance on the shipping. That was in 1700.
So basically, America is allowed to, because of what you're saying, the way that the corporate structure of America is set up, and the fact that we are considered legally to be cargo, they can actually take out loans against our perceived value. Yes. And they are perceiving our value said to be around $1 million per citizen, something like that?
That's the Siskiyou Act.
Okay.
Now, in 1933, FDR sold us into the international bankers to pay off the Depression, and we became a chattel on the loan, and they said, what are you putting against the loan? I'm putting the American people up and their faith in this country.
Okay.
So everybody born with a birth certificate becomes a commercial corporate entity.
Right.
And they are the insurance against the debt.
I'm pretty sure everybody in America has a birth certificate at this point, at least if you're born in the country, with the obvious exception of Obama. He doesn't have one, apparently.
Well, the thing, the birth certificate is forced upon you by the hospital,
right?
Because they believe the birth certificate is necessary,
right?
But there is a form that you could get out of the Social Security system, but you got to do it before you're 18 years old. But nobody tells you about it. But you could drop out of the Social Security system. But then again, you can't have a bank account.
But then again, you're not going to collect Social Security.
You're not a citizen of the corporate America, USA Incorporated. So there, no driver's license, no bank accounts, no mortgages.
And what you're talking about is actually called becoming a solvent citizen, right?
Yes.
Okay, but this is a route that you never actually pursued yourself.
I am as close to a solvent citizen as you could get.
Okay.
But I know people that are solvent citizens.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
They don't drive. They don't have a bank account, and they live in way back in the old days, but they're not part of the corporation.
See, I don't understand why anybody would do that. To me, it's kind of like, ending up in the most colorful, fascinating sandbox in the entire playground with the best toys, and you just wound up there by chance. I was born in the United States of America. Look at all the cool toys we have in this sandbox. That's awesome. And then somebody's like, hey, you got to share your toys. And they go, well, nope, I'm following my own rules now. And I'm not going to play with any of the toys. Why would you want to be in the best sandbox in the playground if you're not going to play with any of the toys?
It's called freedom.
Is freedom more important than toys?
Freedom is more important than life sometimes.
Now, you know what? All joking aside, that I might have to disagree with, because if you don't have life, you can't experience anything.
That's why a lot of illegals are coming into this country, because they come from countries that they are absolutely slaves.
I kind of figured we were going to go there.
They are actually more slaves than anything else. They're not even a person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at, the people who work in the factories in China, and they got the fucking nets on the buildings and everything, so if they jump out the window, the nets catch them, they can't even commit suicide. You know, that's pretty crazy. They work for $1 a day.
8 people to a room.
Right.
And the room is not very big.
Right.
And they get enough money just to eat and maybe buy some clothing at the end of the month. But it's like the old mining things, like you owe your life to the mine.
Right.
Same thing.
Well, it's the same thing because all the food and the housing and the clothes that they're buying, the only place they can afford it is to buy it through the company that they work for.
The company store, they used to call it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're just basically giving back the money that you earned to the company that just paid it to you because you can't afford to go anywhere else. They pay you so little. I mean, that's pretty incredible. That's a brilliant scheme.
It's a big trap.
It's a brilliant scheme is what it is. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
And everybody knows the scheme because I gave you the thing from the Senate that they admit the income tax is a scheme regardless.
Right.
They want you to fill out a 1040 to if you're entitled to a return or not. They don't care. They want to keep a record of you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, it's about surveillance and control, right? That's
control. It's all about control.
Right.
You control your company the way you want, and as long as you can hold that control, you're happy.
Right.
But some people are not happy.
So let me ask you a very serious question now. Where were you on January 6th?
At Washington, D.C.
No kidding!
Yes, I was.
What were you doing there?
I was carrying my flag down there, and I was marching around.
Describe your flag to the
upside-down
audience we don't have, so they know what it is.
It's an upside-down American flag, meaning distress, with the swastika on it, because the government runs like the Nazi government, like 1993.
Yeah.
And then we have the IRS on top of that, because the IRS don't answer to anybody.
Right.
And slowly people are waking up to the fact that the IRS is not part of the government.
Right. Well, when the first time you showed me that flag, I thought to myself, that's a pretty severe, heavy-handed piece of art right there. That really says something.
That's the message.
And a lot of people actually don't know that an upside-down American flag is supposed to be a distress symbol. That comes from combat units, right?
Okay, that comes from maritime law and combat units back in the 1700s.
Right. I learned it from the movie Thunderheart, I think, with Val Kilmer, who goes on an Indian reservation and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the one guy that he's going after has an upside-down flag on his face. He's like, why are you arresting me, man? A Native American on the reservation. And he goes, well, your flag's upside down. That's a federal offense. And he goes, that's a distress signal. And I that's how I learned it just from watching the movie.
That's an act of freedom of speech.
Well, of course. We don't want you to have that anymore. That's dangerous.
Your rights are being taken away slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you guys are all you're a frog in boiling water, man. We're just turning up the temperature very slowly.
We're ready to fight for this country.
Yeah.
But not for this government.
So what do you think America represents if not the government?
A corporation over by international banks, by the Illuminati, by the three powers, the Vatican, England, and the United States.
That's right. Go ahead.
The Vatican controls your mind with religion. England controls the finances because back in 16th and 17th century is all commercial adventure.
Right.
And the U.S. is the bully boys or the army or the enforcement of the laws.
Okay.
Because they've been tricked into believing that they're free, but we're not free. We did not win the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
It was on the 1789, the Treaty of Trent, that it was a truce, just like we did in Vietnam in 1975. We stopped fighting because it cost too much.
Okay.
Same thing happened in England. The English people got sick and tired of supporting the war, and that they stopped the war.
So you're saying that we never actually won our independence?
No, we never won our independence. England still considers us a colony.
Well, they can consider us whatever the hell they want. What do we consider ourselves?
Well, that's up to you individually.
Is it, or is it up to the country? What does the country consider itself? They're not giving any dues or taxes to Britain.
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Social Security goes back to England. The Queen of England.
Social Security tax goes to...
Our Social Security goes to England, and they get a cut of it. Their Uniform Commercial Code and Admiralty Law goes back to England. Our judges are British Accredited Registry.
That's the Bar Association with the lawyers, right?
Also known as the Legal British Guild of Great Britain. So therefore, our system is under English common law. So are we still a free nation, or are we just a colony of England?
You know, I've yet to cross the pond. I guess I'm going to have to go for a visit, meet the Rothschilds, see if I can get in there with the king, maybe do a little schmoozing. What do you think? You think I should go over there?
Well,
is that where the real power lies right now?
I suggest you go to the City of London and then London.
Right.
The City of London is separate from London.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Vatican in Italy. It's a separate unit.
And I've heard this too. So there's a lot of videos about this. You can go down a YouTube rabbit hole, which I've done many, many times. There are 3 almost city-states, but they're more corporations that are set up that have absolutely nothing legally to do with the country that they exist inside. The one is London, within Greater London.
That's finances.
And that represents the financial power of the world.
Yes.
The second that most people know about is the Vatican within Rome, that represents the religious or spiritual or indoctrination power of the entire world. And the third, this is one that a lot of people don't know, especially American citizens, is Washington, D.C., is actually a corporate entity within Virginia. And they represent the military power of the entire world. So it does seem to be sort of like a system of control. And the really interesting thing about this is in all 3 of these corporate, let's call them city-states. I don't think that's accurate.
That could be a good thing.
In each one, there is an obelisk. And I think the one in Rome in London was actually taken from Egypt. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. How about the one at the Vatican? Was that taken from Egypt as well?
No, that was built.
That was built.
And then the one we built in Washington.
Sure.
About 1850 or something. And it took them a long time to build it.
Right.
And it's all the same.
The really interesting thing about the Washington Monument that I always found really fascinating is I don't think they used any cement or mortar building that. It's all the weight. Don't. It's all the weight of the stone.
No, they laid stone on stone, and there's no mortar between them.
So it's just the shapes of the stone and the weight of the stone that keeps it together.
And the shape that holds it.
That's so cool, man. That's awesome.
Goes back to Egypt.
Yeah, that's the way the Egyptians built everything. They had stones of different sizes and shapes to make it basically earthquake proof. It's like a puzzle. Once you put it together, it can't come undone. It's pretty amazing.
It was amazing the way they moved these 200,000-pound pieces of rock into the desert. And how did they get the stones into the desert?
Nobody knows. And anybody who says they think they have an idea is full of shit. Nobody knows. We couldn't do that today. But with all the technology that we have.
We don't even have the equipment to move anything that big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
When I worked on the World Trade Center, and they had that crane on top pulling things up.
Yeah.
Just think, you're the man in the crane, and you got the crane up there. You got to go 100 feet on a ladder to crawl in there, look down in the city street, and people are that small. Now
no, thank you very much.
I worked 90 stories on a hanging scaffold on that place.
Yeah, Jesus
so
Christ.
I built it, and I was working there in 1968.
So you're not scared of heights?
No.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
No.
No, thank you. I couldn't do that in a million years.
I don't
Fuck that.
I don't like speed. I don't like motorcycles.
Yeah, neither do I.
I hate roller coasters.
So do I. So do I.
Claustrophobia? No, I got over that when I worked for the subway system.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I had people come in and they worked 4 hours. They went to lunch and never came back because they were going to play with the third rail.
Okay.
Third rail kills you.
Yeah, no kidding. Why are people playing with it? What are you talking about?
No, they have to move tracks around.
Oh, okay.
They have to call up the office and cut the power off to remove the tracks.
Right.
Or to do the signals.
Right.
It's only 11,000 amps.
Is that all?
600 volts and 11,000 amps. 1 amp kills a human being.
Just be careful. That's all.
Well, let's go back to the amperage law with Tesla and Edison and Westinghouse.
Oh, see, this is one of the reasons why when I met you, I think at first people have this reaction to you at first. I think this guy might be crazy. And I've never left that opinion behind. I do think you're crazy. But so am I. So it's fine.
We're all crazy.
We're all crazy. But then you started talking to me about Tesla versus Edison, and you were telling me about the wireless electricity and Westinghouse and where they had the DC-AC wars and everything and how crooked Edison was. And I was like, I know all of this information. This is great. This guy's interested in the same stuff I am. That's really cool because anybody else I talk to about that stuff, most people are just looking at me like I have 3 heads. They have no idea.
You don't tell a book by its cover unless you look in the book.
Dennis, I'm pretty sure anybody could tell you and me by the cover immediately. I mean, if you look at us, I mean, you pretty much know exactly what you're getting into. Don't you think? Yeah. Don't you think?
We know things that what we can't share with people because they don't understand.
Yeah, well. I think most people don't want to think too much.
They don't want to think.
Yeah, they got their comfortable world. Everything makes sense.
I'm in my little niche. I'm happy. I got my Budweiser. I got my TV. Mm-hmm. I got my car. Yeah, I'm going to concerts. I'm enjoying life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the sandbox with the best toys, and I'm going to enjoy the toys. No, exactly.
I don't never like toys. I like challenges.
There's this great scene in, what was it? Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Jim Carrey is playing this this Italian photographer. And he's very, very awkward. And, there's these kids, and he's going to go take care of them or something. And he goes, "Children are strange and foreign to me. I never was one." When you say things like, I never liked toys. Were you a child? Did you have a Slinky?
I had a Slinky, but we used it for an antenna for radio, ham radio. And that you could look it up on the internet. The military uses Slinkies all the time.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ!
I find a use for everything.
You find it? God damn it! That's hilarious. All right. So one more thing I wanted to talk about before we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and get into the tax thing in a little more depth. But first thing I wanted to get into, one of the most interesting things that I think I found out about you is you started a cult at one time. I mean, do you think that's an accurate description?
A cult? No, it wasn't a cult. I went to follow the rules and regulations for setting the church up.
Okay.
Using the Bible as the basic.
Okay.
And because I refused the 501c from the IRS because they would control what I was teaching, they shut me down.
So that's the reason why it didn't take off?
It didn't take off
because you didn't want to file with the IRS. I just
gave the truth to the people from the Bible, and most of them were Catholics, and if they're a cult or not, you decide. But I just used the Bible as the foundation. I went into the history. I studied the history of religion, and religion basically is rules and regulations to control you.
Well, then why are you interested in religion at all?
Well, that law, religion, and history all go together.
Well, that tells you the basics of civilization.
That tells you basics.
But if you understand that religion is a method of control, what made you want to start a church?
You would have to study it first to get the secrets out of it.
Oh, so you're more of an occultist. You think that there's esoteric hidden meanings.
You could label me anything you want, but you know what? I've been called a lot worse than that.
Well, I know that you're interested in the Kabbalah, and
I got the Kabbalah. I read the Quran,
numerology and gematria and things like that.
I got the Tama, 22 volumes of all the secrets of the Jewish rabbis while they were in Babylon.
You told me a Jewish gentleman got angry at you for having that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell that story.
The rabbi told me you shouldn't have that.
Because you're a goyim?
Because I had a book from 1910 from the temple in Israel.
Okay.
And it has the spells, the angels, and the mystic.
Oh, this is actually, you're talking about ritual magic.
Yes, we're talking about ritual magic that came out of this 1910 book.
Interesting. Very cool. Yeah. Have you ever read like the Lesser Seal of Solomon or anything like that?
Oh, the Book of Solomon? I've read some of it.
Yeah.
I've read so much, it's a little harder to retain at this age.
Yeah.
Because I got a lot of years on you.
Well, and you're pretty much focused on taxes and the corruption of the government and everything else.
That was my niche.
I watch that shit like a circus. You know, it's like I already said, the WWE, it's entertaining, but in the end, it's a performance.
Yes.
So I kind of tend to focus on things like you're interested in with religion, like the Kabbalah. I'm a big fan of Aleister Crowley. You know, I did study the Kabbalah through Crowley and his method where he redid the tarot cards according to the pathways and all that. And I find that stuff really fascinating. That's interesting to me.
Well, if you're interested in learning things, you have to go there and study it.
So what was the point of your church?
Just to teach the basic format of what the Bible really said.
Okay.
And then when they asked me, what does the what is the mark of the beast? Goes back to 666, and they used to say George Bush was the Antichrist, and then it was Ronald Reagan, then it was the Catholic Church, and I looked at it, and then I went to the Hebrew language, and the Hebrew language, every letter has a value.
So, in all mystical languages, including ancient Egyptian, as far as we know, every single letter represents a word, a sound, and a number. And that's the basis of a mystical language or a magical
female
language.
Entity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the computers. What is a computer? OX. That's the language. OX.
Binary you're talking about.
The binary code. Yeah. And the binary code
is just 1 and 0. Open or closed circuit. That's it.
And who was the smartest person in the world?
Me.
Cleopatra.
Oh.
She got to the throne at 15. She died at 39. She spoke 9 languages. She knew how to read the hieroglyphics in the pyramids.
Okay. Well, in the Great Pyramids, there are no hieroglyphics. And that's something that really fascinates me because everybody says that they're burial places for the pharaohs. And they make it out like these are just structures that were meant to immortalize beings that had tremendously large egos. But if you go into the Great Pyramids, there's no decoration. There's no hieroglyphs. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
Then again, you got to remember the Egyptians, there's a certain section of people that believe they were aliens.
Right.
And the pyramids were energy towers.
Yeah.
And they were placed around the world like radar.
Right.
And they were
to form some sort of grid around the globe. Yeah. On the Lee lines and all that.
Space thing, because if you look at the characters in the temple, you had half humans with a bird head. You had lions' heads on some human bodies.
Well, listen, I'm a painter, and I paint crazier shit than that. So people do have imaginations. It doesn't mean they actually look that way, you know?
But that's what people were taught.
Right. I gotcha. So the point of your church was just to show some of the secrets and the true history of the Bible and this dispels certain myths that people cling to. I mean, a really simple one is that Adam and Eve ate an apple off of the tree of life. It actually never says what type of fruit it was. Well, I mean, right there, that's something simple that everybody thinks that is actually never written down. It's not there.
The basic thing with Adam and Eve, they took of the fruit of the tree of truth and knowledge.
Right.
And that's why they got thrown out of the garden.
Right.
Because they became godlike.
Well, it's amazing to me that the entire biblical story starts out with God saying, knowledge is bad, and never again through the entire Bible is there one word in praise of knowledge or intelligence, which is why it surprises me that this book is so important to you. Because you do prize knowledge and intelligence above all else.
Yes, above all.
Yeah.
Because without knowledge, you ain't going to be able to survive.
So let me ask you a question. Did Adam and Eve do the right thing by eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Well, Adam was tricked by Eve to bite at it. The snake deceived Eve. And even today, you look at mankind, there's a woman behind him that could deceive you. Or the world is the snake and is saying, I want a house. I want a new car.
Right.
And you got this woman.
Attachment.
She's got power over you.
Okay.
Because you have this thing inside. That's your mate.
Right.
All right. And you accept that and you go along with the compromise. Mm-hmm. And sometimes compromising is surrender.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you don't have a woman in your life.
How dare you? I have many women in my life. I have a harem, good sir.
Oh, really?
I do not have to compromise for a woman. I have many whenever
You're not like Solomon.
I would like to think I'm a lot like Solomon. I would like to
I don't think you could handle that many women.
But I could try.
Oh, you have fun doing.
I could try. I'll try really hard.
Good.
Until it's not. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break, and if that's okay with you. So right now, we're going to have a word from our sponsors. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to get more useless information out of us about the New World Order, little tips and secrets that we're giving away just because we think it's fun. Subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for these messages. A word from our sponsor. We'll be right back with a little more in depth with the story of how this gentleman, who I am calling Harry, actually did or actually claims to have beaten the IRS. Stay tuned.
Is your life hollow? Meaningless? Full of saccharine bliss and midday doldrums? Are you devoid of fear? Is there an emptiness you only truly feel when in the presence of people who love and care about you? Do you cut yourself just to feel anything? We have and are the solution. New World Order now. When complacency has broken your spirit, we have the fear you need to motivate you. Global warming. Globalism. Just the globe. Pollution. Governmental regulation. the governmental regulation of pollution. The deafening cries of the blue-collar workers demanding less regulation to save their jobs. The deafening cries of billionaires demanding that the blue-collar workers elicit deafening cries for the deregulation of pollution to save the profits made on the machines that will replace the deafening workers. Melanin content. The president. No, not that one. The bad one. Nuclear war. The collapse of the nuclear family. The atomic disintegration of the nuclear family through nuclear war. Frightening military technology. Frightening biological technology. Frightening biological military technology. Science! We can terrorize you with the war on terror. We have the technology. Caustic, inexplicable, inexcusable technology. Made in America by the finest governmentally subsidized corporations. We can't fail because we won't let them fail. And failure is not an option. Subscribe to a better future. Our future. Ring the sacred bell. It calls us. It makes us become one with you. It makes you become one with the future. Be notified of the future. The future is inside of you. We are the future. Let the future inside of you. Let us inside of you. Unleash your potential. Unleash the potential for us being inside of you. Don't you want a better future? Your children deserve the money to eat, to grow, to consume. Bring order to the chaos of your life with the chaos of the New World Order. Submit to subscription. Subscription is not voluntary.
Eases off was the
banking
usury
system.
And that's how the Knights Templar gained so much power. They were the first non-Jews that were sanctioned by the Catholic Church to practice usury. And that's how they became so powerful.
And protection traveling to Jerusalem.
Well, that was their original mandate. But they were also allowed to practice usury. That's how they gained all their wealth and power. It's pretty amazing.
Yep. Well,
and usury, for anybody who doesn't know, is I loan you money with interest. You have to pay me back more than I loaned you. So nowadays, that's considered a very common business practice.
Did you see the credit card rates? 29%.
Some of them are outrageous. And if you're getting credit card offers for 29%, your credit's in the toilet, man. You got to check that out.
I turned down credit cards.
I know. You don't like being on the grid at all.
No, I'm off the grid.
You're a cash guy. Everything's cash.
Everything's cash.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna cut around a little bit, and anytime I get stuck going through papers or anything like that, we'll just edit it out before we put this up on YouTube, because you have a lot of information in your head that I do not have. So I'm gonna try to keep us on track.
Right.
And skip around a little bit, but if I end up shuffling papers for a few minutes, it's fine. Not a big deal. We'll edit it out in post. So first thing that I wanted to show here. So you brought this to my attention. You were looking up Harry's War, the movie that we were talking about the guy who goes against the IRS.
1981.
And you were showing me a comment by somebody who I guess purchased the movie on Amazon. And and I'll just read a little bit of it real quick. Harry's War was immediately targeted for takedown by the IRS, and as a direct result has remained extremely obscure ever since. I was fortunate enough to have seen this when it was first released in theaters, but that release was limited and short-lived. The IRS contacted every theater that was showing it or was due to show it and threatened to audit them into perpetuity. This was confirmed to me by the theater owner where I saw it, who was willing to stand up to the IRS. He was indeed audited for what were obviously retaliatory purposes. Jesus Christ, sorry. For multiple years thereafter. Why was the IRS so threatened by this film? For one thing, the film is extraordinarily accurate when it comes to IRS procedure, both legal and administrative. Only those familiar with tax law and IRS procedure are likely to pick up on this when watching the movie. If you pay attention, you can actually learn a few things about the injustices and blatant tyrannies of the IRS. The IRS director in this film accurately acknowledges, quote, the system operates on bluff. And if the American people figure this out and rise up, we're finished, unquote. Of course, no one can actually hope to win a war with the IRS, not unless you're Michael Miskovich, I don't know who that is, and have the financial resources of the Church of Scientology backing. Okay, I guess that's the head of the Church of Scientology. So, what I want to do, so that it operates on bluff, that would bring us right into the IRS and the Social Security Administration. And this is basically filing a grievance that you are considered a corporation rather than an individual. Because the way that they do this is they spell your name with all capital letters in legal documents, uppercase letters in legal documents, and what that is a little legal trick that it is known that if your name is spelled with all uppercase letters in a legal document, it is referring to the fictitious entity or corporate entity known as you, Harry, we'll call you Harry, rather than the individual citizen who's a citizen of the United States. Yes. And you were saying that the birth certificate is what creates that legal...
The birth certificate is the hook.
Right.
The application of the birth certificate to the tax forms make the hook on the perjury clause that you're going according to their rules and regulations. You're admitting that you're part of the corporation.
Right. Right.
But under U.S. Title 15, you're not.
Right.
And it's a little complicated thing, but to undo it, it takes a lot of effort. My uncorporated letter, I unincorporated myself and disavowed me from the United States of America Incorporated. I am not a citizen of the United States of Incorporated. And most people don't understand that. And even if I gave it to the tax people, they look at it, they never heard of it because they're given a manual how to do things and follow it.
Right.
Just like you want to sell a product.
You're talking about the clerks in the office. They're not aware of any of this. They don't think they're doing anything illegal.
They don't know. But until they get into the legal department, that's when the things change.
Right.
And then again, they want to bullshit you anyway, and they send you letters, and you come back at them, and you give them the same information.
So any letter where it is referring to you, and they spell your name in all capital letters, they're not referring to you. They're kind of referring to like a DBA, doing business as a fictitious entity,
also known as,
that was established when you were born and you got your birth certificate.
Right.
And none of us knew this. It's just you. That's the way it is. You're now
that's
a corporate.
The way it is.
Right. A corporate entity with completely different rights than a citizen would have.
Yes.
Okay.
So you become part of the corporation.
Now talk to me a little bit about Admiralty law.
Admiralty law has the American flag with the royal fringe on it, that when you walk into a courtroom, you're like walking into a military tribunal or a captain's mast.
Now, I've heard that that's why you have to walk through this little door that's about hip high to approach the bench. It represents walking onto a ship.
Right.
And that's why the flags in the courtroom always have gold fringe, is to represent that they are operating under
admiralty law.
Or maritime law,
Maritime
correct?
law.
Right, okay. Yeah, so how'd you get around that? Because you did battle them in court. How did you get around that legality?
Well, I pissed off a lot of judges. I tell you what.
I'll bet you did.
And then they asked me, it's just like my friend Alan in court right now. He's not going along with the rules because they got the yellow fringe, and he's doing what I taught him.
Right.
And so far, it's been over a year before they charged him with anything. And they don't want to give him a trial. They don't want to give him a jury trial. They want the oath, him to give an oath to the judge, because the judge works under the Crown. Because remember, it's the Bar Association, the lawyers, and the judge was a member of the bar.
Right.
And the judge has a bond, and it's not a United States constitutional court, it's an admiralty court. And he reminded the judge of that. And the judge walked away from him.
So your friend that you're giving legal advice to right now is pissing a lot of people off on your behalf.
Yes, the local...
I kind of feel like since you got out of the fight, you still really want to dig at them, so you find anybody who's in trouble and you give them advice.
Anybody,
so you can get at them through somebody else.
I just give them the information and let them deal with
it. but you take a certain amount of pleasure in the fact that your buddy's pissing these people off.
Lawyers and judges off, and sometimes some nasty cops.
Sure.
The sheriff's department, I took them on open carry in Pennsylvania.
Right. I think you just don't like authority.
I taught, but I didn't go to law school or anything. It's just that I learned the hard way by going to court
and doing a lot of research in the meantime.
Believe me, it took years to get things.
I mean, this compound is pretty much a fucking library of a lot of printed documents, obscure books, all that sort of stuff. And I do want to point out, there it is, a little bit about your background. This is the book that pretty much got you started on this whole journey, isn't it? It's called The Federal Mafia, How the Government Illegally Imposes and Unlawfully Collects Income Taxes by a gentleman named Irwin Schiff. So tell me a little bit about how you got started with that.
1981, I seen the movie of the Harry's War. Then I got hooked up with Irwin Schiff. He was an accountant with the U.S. Army. He was into the money issue of stocks and bonds and insurances and all. And he started investigating it, and he created the Federal Mafia with a zero return. He got $50 million back to the American people.
Wow.
They took notice to him.
So you told me, although it's not on record as being such, you told me that he kind of got suicided.
Well, it's like you're facing your giant, and they had to come after him to stop him.
Right.
They banned his book.
Okay. Now, you can buy it now, legally.
They do have it.
It's on Amazon right there.
He couldn't sell it, but everybody else could sell it.
So they were just trying to make sure that he couldn't profit off of it?
Right.
Okay.
He said that was a scam.
It's kind of like when you get demonetized on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube still shows commercials on your videos. They just don't give you any of the money.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Isn't it all about money?
It's all about money in the end. And everybody talks about racism and everything like that. There's a great quote. I think it's from the end of an episode of Family Guy. It turns out the only color that matters is green.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so that's pretty much what this all comes down to.
Well, it's a lot of history you got to study and a lot of research you got to do. His son, Peter Schiff, runs a organization that sells gold and silver.
Okay.
But he's within the system.
Right.
He's not doing like his old man did.
Well, Irving Schiff was, he started out as a money manager.
Yes.
Before he took on this crusade, and his son is
money manager.
And his son is doing the same thing. He's a money guy.
Right.
Yeah. And you said that Irwin Schiff came across some irregularities because of his work.
Right, and he investigated it.
Yeah, so he kind of figured out that there was something stinking.
There was something smell. It's a kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Even Joe Bannister, who's a gun-carrying ATF agent, found out, and he went to his boss, and his boss says, "You're going to resign."
Okay.
Sherry Jackson found out her A commission that he from the IRS meant nothing because it was not an enforceable tax. She didn't have the E enforceable tax, and she went to her boss, and they took her to court and locked her up, and a few others have been put in jail that I know. Even some local guys up here. They went to the federal jail up in Waymont for a year, and his guy's wife went to jail for a year because he challenged them outright, and that's what he got. I did it a different way. I did it a little sneaky way. I just probed them a little bit, and I forced them to come after me.
But what you essentially did, and the way that you eventually won, a large part of that was taken from Irving Schiff's book.
Irving Schiff and all the rest of them that was in the tax-free movement,
right,
including Bob Schultz from Queensboro, New York, called We the People. We went down to Washington. We had a 4-day meeting in Washington, and they had all these guys lined up, and they were doing broadcasts on it. And I got the disc on the 4 days that they were challenged the IRS, and nobody from the IRS showed up at the meeting. Nobody.
Okay.
They couldn't disprove a thing we said.
So who set up this meeting?
Bob Schultz from We the People, Queensboro, New York.
So basically, he set up like a town hall.
And town hall meeting, and he had all these tax people on there, and they invited anybody from the IRS to come down and disprove it.
Now, the IRS's major commission is supposed to be explaining and giving information on tax law. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that is.
So
that's what their mission is.
So isn't it kind of their responsibility that if a meeting like this has taken place, aren't they obligated to show up?
Yes and no. Yes, they are obligated, but you can't force them.
Well, they should be obligated under law if that's their commission. No, if that's their commission, they should be obligated under law.
They should come down and disprove what all these people said. But they couldn't do it.
And they didn't even bother to show at all.
They didn't even bother to show up.
So I wanted to point out another document that you gave me. This is a huge document. We can't read.
19-page Dear IRS.
Yeah, it's a letter to the IRS by a gentleman that did some research into.
Yes.
Obviously has to be a lawyer. If not a lawyer, a legal scholar.
Right.
Because it's incredibly in-depth. And I read most of it. And it is fascinating. It talks about how the way they get away with... First of all, it says that the IRS is basically a nickname given to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF.
No, there were Bureau of Income way back after the Civil War. They changed the name to the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay.
And then in 1913, they changed their ruling around. And then the ATF has always been around.
But according to this letter and the research that this woman or gentleman did, it seems like the director of the ATF is nicknamed IRS.
Yes.
That's what he found out.
It was never voted in by Congress to be a legal entity.
So it's not actually a bureau.
No.
As a priori, it's not a bureau.
No, it's not.
Okay. And income tax is not constitutionally enforceable because there's only two types of tax that are...
Three types: alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Well, no, but I mean, there's the one that's apportioned.
And yes.
What's the other one?
Indirect and direct.
Okay. Yeah. See, people are going to have to do their own research here because I can't take the information that you're giving me, process it, and give it back to them.
It took me a long time to sort this out.
I can't unpack it. You know what I mean?
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, we'd be here all day.
Most people don't have the time, the gumption, or they want to do it because it's a lot easier paying a traffic ticket than fighting it, isn't it? It's only money, right?
It's only money. The most important thing in American society is money.
Yes.
I don't think we have much of a culture other than money. I mean, how would you define American culture if not you have the freedom to earn money any way you want? The only freedom that seems to me to speak to a culture that America has is the freedom to what do you call that? Where you're not stuck in a class.
Right. Well,
you're able to move between classes through your own effort.
The thing is, we were sold into corporate slavery in 1871, and if you read the original Constitution, you have a right to prosper and own property. But they changed the word to happiness. They took the word prosper out of the original Constitution.
I don't know anything about this.
Well, like I said, that's what the original Constitution from 1775. And if this was 1775, I'd be sitting in Bunker Hill shooting those English son of bitches that invaded the colony, and I would be fighting the British.
Right. Oh, I'm sure you would be. I have no doubt about that. Yeah.
But I fight...
Especially because apparently the whole war was started because of taxation without representation, and you hate taxes to begin with. I'm sure you would have been right there on the front lines.
I would be right on the front line. I'd be sitting there with all those people up in Concord.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what it costs.
So do you think that the IRS is actually like the mafia? Like they're basically just shaking down citizens with fear and propaganda?
Yes.
And there's really no legal recourse for them to have if you refuse to pay. That's what you're saying.
They if you want to fight them in court. But the one thing about the mafia, their rules are real simple. You don't pay, you die. But the IRS wants to play with you like a cat with a little mouse and knock it around. They want you to volunteer it and think you're obligated. But the mob said, nope, we're taking 20% of your business, you like it or not.
Right.
And if you don't, your window gets broke, your car gets blown up, or worst thing, you get your legs broken.
Right. And there's well, I'm sure that you're happy that they play with you in court rather than breaking your legs, aren't you? Would you rather they just break your legs?
I've been there too.
Well, I know that you got mixed up with we've had some late night conversations where at least one of us is drunk. It's me. Because you don't drink a lot. And you did get mixed up with some interesting characters.
I married an Italian sweetheart.
Okay.
Some of her family was in the family.
The family.
There's two different families. The families that are legal, that the government don't bother, or the other family that is the mob.
Well, last time we talked, you told me how you really got started on all of this, and it was because the IRS put a lien against your house. And they left you with very little money to survive on. Talk a little bit about that.
1985, the IRS left me $75 a week on, and they took an legal court system. And for 4 years, I lived on $75 a week. I had my son and my father with me.
That's impossible, even in 1975.
No, not if you go and work 24 hours a day and to feed your family.
Right. So you had to do some
I had to do whatever it took.
Off the books. Is that right? And that's how you kind of got involved with some colorful characters. Let's call them that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard some stories.
And then again, I had my own little thing going, and it worked very good.
But I mean, they basically left you with no choice.
They went to try to destroy me.
Yeah. And you're not just going to lay down and die, so you found a way to make money.
We were taught very well not to lay down and die.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the results of it.
Sure.
Actually, I was never into a combat zone. so I was not in a firefight.
But you were in Vietnam, you said, right?
No, I was on the ship supplying food and feeding them.
Right.
Supply is just as important as feeding the guys ammo on the field.
Yeah.
And supply is the backbone.
Right.
So, well, like I said, we did what we had to do because I believed in the country then. But since then, since 1975, I found out a whole lot of different ball games, the different operations that were illegal.
Okay.
Like we were in Burma, this and that.
In Cambodia and all
Cambodia, right? The Khmer Jews, where the little guys were chopping off heads, and they had 2 million people they killed. They chopped them out, made a mountain of heads.
Okay.
And some of the stories I got from the guys that did these dirty ops.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that your government's got dirty ops.
Yeah. Well, sure.
They got alphabet names.
Every government does.
Every government does.
Yeah, they have to.
And they have to, but remember the movie with Charles Nicholson when he says, "You don't want to know the truth"? Code Red, I think it was.
What was the name of that movie? You can't handle the truth.
Yeah,
Jack
you remember
Nicholson.
that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
He was a hard-ass Marine Corps that did the dirty work for the government.
Exactly.
And as far as the government's concerned, they can't deny it.
Right. Sure. And they don't anymore. But during the time,
at the time
they did.
We're in 125 countries around the world.
Yeah.
We got the SEALs and we got the recon teams all over the place.
Oh, I wanted to bring this up before. Speaking of when you were saying that we never actually won the revolution, we are still considered a corporate entity of the British Crown.
The war stopped because England could not afford the war, so they made a truce. Just like we made a truce in Korea, and we made a truce in 1975 in Vietnam.
Right.
We just stopped the fighting.
So this is really interesting. I saw it's a meme, I guess, and it shows every country in the world on a global map that has a holiday where they celebrate their independence from Great Britain. And if I remember correctly, it was like over 150 countries.
Yes.
Apparently, this is the most popular holiday on the planet. So many countries have an Independence Day from Great Britain that, I mean, that's something we have in common with almost the rest of the world.
Yes.
That's crazy.
But they did want free. They became a satellite government of England. They were given their freedom with a puppet government. And that's the way they operate, because England still controls the finance of these countries.
Right.
With money's exchange and everything.
Well, London is supposedly
the
financial center of the entire globe.
Right.
Right.
And they give sanctions to, like the International Bank, they give sanctions to countries, they give money to countries, and they take money away. Mm-hmm. They control them then. So
well, the IMF seems incredibly corrupt. When they give these loans to the countries, they know they're not going to be able to pay back.
They can't pay them.
And then they come in and they take up all the natural resources and they corporatize it. Yeah.
Like the diamonds out of Africa, the fruit out of these countries, like the United Fruit Company down in Puerto Rico and down there, they're run by the international bankers from 1904.
Mm-hmm.
They had a $3 tax on your telephone from 1903 from the Philippines, from Cuba to Florida. There was a $3 tax on your phone bill up to 1947.
Okay.
And nobody knew that tax was there. It was like a surtax.
Okay.
And just on that one cable that went from Cuba to Florida. And they finally got rid of it.
Okay.
But now we got a lot of surcharges on our wireless phones.
Okay.
So that's a lot of it. Half your bill is nothing but taxes.
Well, I know that like Verizon, because they had the infrastructure for the hard lines and everything, I think it was an antitrust
laws
case, and the government made the telephone system into rather than a private company, they turned it into a public utility, and therefore they can tax the service.
That was in 1980 with Westinghouse Phone Company had to break up into all little phone companies. Westinghouse had the monopoly.
So one of those little pieces from that ended up being Bell Atlantic on the East Coast,
Bell Atlantic, AT&T,
which became Verizon.
Verizon, all of them.
Right.
But it was basically the Westinghouse Phone Company.
Okay.
Because my first wife worked for the Westinghouse Phone Company.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I got a lot of inside information on that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting that they became a utility, and that's why if you have Verizon as your telephone service, I don't know how it works with wireless, but especially with landlines, your bill is different every month, and people are always saying, why is it different every month? It can vary as much as $15 month to month. Well, that's because of the taxes and the surcharges that the government imposes on it.
From 1903 from Cuba. Now, there's another thing. The New York City Transit Authority now buys the electric from Con Edison, or Med Ed, as is known.
Okay.
Before, we had our own generators producing DC electric, feeding the subways.
Oh, okay.
And certain areas. And we had these giant generators that were as big as a tractor trailer.
So why did that change? Why did they start buying it from Con Ed?
Political. The New York City.
It's just lobbyists?
New York City got into it. Con Ed got into it and greased somebody's palm, and we have to buy the electric to run the train system now.
Right, I got you.
Again, it's control.
Right. So it's basically establishing corporate power.
Corporate power, exactly.
Right. So one more thing I wanted to bring. I feel like we're getting a little off track here. I did want to end on the taxes. One thing is the letter to the IRS from that legal individual. Is that included in your tax statement?
I never got any response from it.
Is that included in your tax statement that we're putting online?
Yes, that is.
That's part of it?
That's part of it.
Because that fascinated me.
That has a lot of laws, rules, and regulations, and a lot of interesting information that will explain why and how it happened.
Right.
And that's what you got to know. You got to give them their history, and then they get their history, and the clerk don't know it. So the clerk gives it to the supervisor. The supervisor gives it to the general manager, and it goes up into the legal department. And then the legal department's got to say, "Oh shit! Look at the information he's got. That man's too much. What is he? We can't handle this."
Okay.
And then again, it has to go to the Department of Justice.
Right.
And you know what? All government agencies now, they're all corporations and they're for-profit organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Profit corporate. The IRS is for profit. The CIA is for profit.
Well, a lot of things that the government does seems to be bottom-up wealth transfers, where they're taking taxpayer dollars, which you're saying are illegally imposed. And what they do is they buy things from private corporations, for example, guns and ammunition. A lot of war profiteering going on right now.
General Electric was making the submarines for the Navy.
There you go.
And
Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing.
Grumman's aircraft out in Long Island for the airplanes that went over to Vietnam and got shot down, the helicopters. Up in Hartford, Connecticut, they had jet engines they were buying.
Okay.
But you know what? We had a deal with Vietnam that if they shot down a helicopter, we replaced it. The Democrats killed that, and that's why we lost Vietnam.
Right.
That's the real reason.
Okay. So what you're saying, so say that again?
We had a deal made to the South Vietnam, that if they lost a piece of equipment, we replaced it.
Because they just wanted the war to keep going. So we were replacing their equipment.
And then...
equipment.
They used our equipment, and we had to replace it. Well, the Democrats killed that, and that's why we lost the Vietnam War.
What do you mean? So we don't want to replace their equipment. They're the enemy, aren't they?
No, because it got too expensive. that war would go on for another 20 years. You can't win.
I'm not following you, man. Whose equipment were we replacing?
We were replacing the equipment we gave to the South Vietnamese army.
Were they on our side?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant we were replacing the enemy's equipment.
No, they were on our side.
I heard there was some FUBAR things going on in
They
Vietnam.
were our puppet government.
Okay.
There was a guy named General Key. He was president at that time. General Key now owns a liquor store out in California.
Okay.
He came to this country.
Okay.
It was all about the war military complex.
Military-industrial complex. I gotcha.
Everybody knows about that.
Well, sure. I mean, that speech is really famous right now. Anybody that I see online is talking about that at one point or another, you know. That's pretty amazing that was predicted right after.
We're wasting all our resources when we could make this country great again.
Oh, you said a key word.
What?
That's a key word.
Yeah.
So should we make America great again, or should we build back better?
We should make better use of our money.
It seems like whichever one we want to do, whether you want to make it great again or you want to build back better, it's understood that it has to be destroyed first. Otherwise, there's no work to do.
Well, look at Detroit and Michigan with the cars.
Sure.
The car industry.
Oh, sure.
And now they're talking about electric cars.
We could. What you're saying is we could be investing in our own country and our own people instead of just war profiteering, which is essentially what this country does.
Look at this way. You're buying Chinese goods. You're wearing clothes from Indochina. You're buying electronics from Germany. You're getting computer parts from Israel. We're buying mostly imports, and very few things are made in America no more. You don't make shoes in America anymore. Johnson.
My brother told me something interesting the other day. He said that the United States of America has a record amount of produced goods that are produced here in this country than it's ever had. I didn't look into this. With the smallest workforce on record.
Yes.
But we're still making
we're the most productive country in the world.
We're still making a lot of things here then.
Yes. But they don't buy them overseas because they put such a high tax on them.
Okay.
And you can't, it's like import and export, all right? Even with the taxes we put on the Chinese goods, they still make a profit.
Yeah.
But they steal all patents anyway. They copy
that's
everything.
Crazy. The whole thing that happened with the chips and you couldn't buy a car and all that, and that company, there was a company that basically a Chinese company bought in and then stole all their stuff and ran off. I mean, that was, I don't remember the exact story. We're getting a little deep in the weeds because I don't have precise information.
You have people in Wall Street, that's what they do. They go into a company, they buy it up, and they destroy it, and they make a profit.
So let's end on this. On that letter to the IRS by that legal scholar, whoever it is, there's something on there about when you file a 1040, you are remitting tax to the Philippines or the Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico. Can you explain that a little bit?
Puerto Rico is an audit firm that all by treaty, all the 1040s go to them. They audit the thing. They're like the bookkeepers. They send the information to Washington, and Washington decides what taxes you pay. Okay. But it's a treaty that they made way back in 1904, 1905.
So essentially, when we pay income taxes, are we paying taxes on behalf of U.S. territories?
More or less.
And that's how they legally get away with it.
That's how they legally get you. Plus the perjury form on the 1040. If you sign that, you're agreeing to their corporate laws.
Okay.
And if you don't sign it, they can't process the paper.
And you showed me the zero return that Irving Schiff talks about in his book, The Federal Mafia. And that's most of what you did follows that book. And he talks about the zero return. You can't sign that perjury box.
No, you don't sign the perjury box.
Otherwise...
No. He made the zero return. I enhanced it with the tax statement.
Right.
I backed it up.
And we're gonna put that online. We're gonna find a way before this is edited and put up. It will be in the show notes for anybody who wants to read it. On that note, do you recommend that other people follow this path?
Absolutely not. Not unless you got nothing to lose.
Okay.
Everything to win, and you have courage to go forward, because you are going to meet a tsunami of people that are going to come after you from the government, lie to you, tell you lies. You're going to go up in court, you're going to face a judge, and the judge is going to lie to you, and the lawyers are going to lie to you, so the whole system's a lie.
Okay.
And when you tell them you're an admiralty court, a maritime court, and it's not a constitutional court, and I am not a corporate citizen, so therefore I am not part of your system.
Right.
And when you do that, you cross that line, then they come at you like a wave.
You got a tsunami of bullshit thrown your way.
A tsunami of bullshit
and this whole thing,
coming on you.
This whole thing from research to actually battling in court took you about 30 years. Right. You won, but you only got 1 year's worth of taxes back,
but
because
after that, I never filed another 1040. And
exactly. You don't pay any more.
I don't pay any more. I stop my boss from taking the income tax.
So people that want to do this, and they're going to think, oh, I can get back all the taxes that I ever paid in my lifetime. No, you can't, because there's a statute of limitation.
They only go back 3 years.
Right.
Plus, you go and you do the tax statement, and then again from the tax statement, you don't do a 1040 no more. And if you retire, on your forms that you get your Social Security and your pension, you put exempt. Okay. They don't take no money on it.
Right. And
therefore you can't file a 1040 because the government don't have any money.
And then you file
the tax
zero
statement
return.
According to the 1974 Privacy Act of the IRS Code.
Right.
But it takes a long time to get to that point.
So you lost a house.
I lost a house, and
you lost years of your life.
$150,000.
$150,000, and you didn't have a lawyer. You did all this by yourself.
No, I did all myself.
So this is just filing court papers. They charge you every time you go and do something like that, because they get paid, so you have to pay into it in order to go there. So $150,000 on top of losing your house.
Right.
Years of your life, but you fought and you claim that you did win, and it can be done.
It can be done if you're willing to take your chance. If you got nothing to lose and everything to gain, you could get your freedom.
Right.
But that's only part of it.
Right.
But I don't suggest it for anybody, that if you got a family or whatever you got to do, and I may have insulted a lot of so-called educated people, but they got tired of me.
You don't say.
I am like a I am like a grain of glass in your foot, and every time you step down, I'm pinching you. Now you say you don't want to deal with me no more? Well, then leave me alone.
You delight in doing that as well. I mean, I get that impression from you.
Well, I like you said, death and taxes. We all going to die. But let's get rid of taxes out of life.
I'm not going to die.
Oh, I'm glad.
I'm glad
you believe that.
I'm going to possess new and younger bodies once the adrenochrome no longer keeps me young.
Right.
I'm going to exodus into the astral plane, and then I'm going to find a new young body to possess and just slowly take over the mind. So it becomes 100% me. Just like Ralph is trying to do to me right now.
Yeah, what's Ralph doing? How you doing, Ralph?
He's trying to possess me right now.
What you doing, Ralph? He's been sitting there listening to me, and he hasn't said a word.
Yeah, he doesn't say a lot. He doesn't say a lot, no. But he's a nice guy.
Yep.
All right, so let's give everybody your information. We're going to post documents. It's going to be in the notes when we put this up. If people want to get in touch with you, if they have any questions or anything, or they just want to tell you that you're crazy or whatever, you
call me what you want. You said but Twitter, I won.
You said you did? Well, according to that little photocopy of a check that you gave to me, it looks like you did. I'm going to be honest with you. That's what surprised me, because I've heard a lot of people talk shit about this for a very long, my entire life. I've heard people talk shit about this. But when it comes down to it, they're just talking shit. You know, nobody ever does anything, but you actually fought, and according to the paperwork that you've shown me, you've won.
I won on principle. I wore them out. They don't want to bother with me no more. Did I win? Yes, I did win my part of freedom. Did I lose? I lost a lot. But you know what? Everybody has a price in the battle.
Yep. I hear
you. If you don't get on the front line, you don't know what you're going to be able to do.
Well, listen, I hope you enjoy your last few days of freedom, because I have made phone calls to all my friends at Davos and my connections in the government. The New World Order is aware of you now.
Good.
And enjoy your last few days of freedom, because they're not going to be very long.
Are they prepared for warfare?
We're coming for you, sir. We're coming for you.
Good. Hey, listen, we're all going to die.
Hey, listen, you said if people want to get in touch with you, they can go on Twitter?
Go on Twitter.
Okay, we'll look at Twitter in a second. Let's do this first. What is on the sign that you plopped on my desk here? It's beautiful, by the way. It really fits the decor of the studio very well. What's this all about?
The Supreme Law Library is the whole set of laws, rules, and regulations, and court cases that people need to know before they go into a battle.
And this is something that's searchable online?
Yes, it is. Okay. They got it. And the other, what's the other one?
Survivalist Freedom Center.
That's my page on Facebook.
But you haven't finished setting it up yet?
I haven't finished that.
Okay, so eventually that'll be...
Eventually I'm going to put that up.
All right, so if people want to contact you on Twitter...
Right.
Your handle is... at Harry's War 9,
right.
HARRYSWAR, the number 9. They can find you on Twitter. They can find
ask me
you
on
questions,
Facebook.
whatever they want.
I've been putting this on Facebook for 2 years, and nobody's got back to me.
Right.
But I've been putting it out, so therefore I'm not hiding.
Yeah, you're definitely not hiding.
I'm not hiding, and if they want to get some personal information, personal things, just contact me and I'll send you more paperwork.
Right. Well, hey, listen, I think your story is fascinating. I'd like to go a little bit more into some of your New York escapades. I think that would be a lot of fun. Oh, I know. But times are changing, man. There are ex-colorful characters that have their own podcasts now.
Yeah.
Henry Hill was on the Howard Stern show a whole bunch.
And Michael Massini, who was a capo for his father, his family. His father was in a wheelchair in the hospital ward in the prison. He got out, and he's the only one that didn't rat out a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be so shy about that shit anymore. It's different times.
Different times. I know Sammy the Bull, well, he's not well liked.
Okay.
But his own family, his children got involved with some criminal activity.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? Who are you going to call me a criminal? The only reason why you call me a criminal because I'm different from you.
Yeah.
So therefore, who's the criminal?
I don't think that you led me into an answer with that statement the way you think you did.
Well, no, like I said, the government may call us criminals, but maybe we just stand for our rights and we're criminals. The English called the colonists a bunch of treasonous son of bitches, and they just executed them.
Well, let's end on that. History is written by the victors. Thank you so much for watching. Harry, I hope you'll do this with me again. It was a lot of fun.
Harry 9.
I think you're an interesting character, man. So I had a lot of fun. Enjoy the education. I've never met one of you before, so you're the real deal. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Like our channel. Like the video. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Help us out. You can see another video there. Here's the subscribe button, something like that. Thank you for watching the New World Order, and remember, we're watching you too. Someone is watching.
strange.